Welcome back to the Barrel Talk Podcast. We are back with another episode. This is going to be an NFL. Let's talk about it. We know we do the basketball, NBA. Let's talk about it. We're going to transition it over to the NFL as well. Going to be talking about something we didn't talk about in yesterday's episode, which was the Davante Adams trade rumors and everything else that is going down. But we're just going to go over, talk about some of the best fits, talk about the current situation with the Raiders, and just really dive into this Davante Adams situation.
Yeah, what are your initial thoughts?
I think this is stupid. Not for the reasons you would think, but more so because why didn't he just do this in the offseason?
Right.
It's week 4. The season just started. And it's not like we didn't know about this because Receiver came out on Netflix last year, and there was obviously problems with the Raiders last year. So I don't know if he thought Gardner Minshew was going to come in and change the entire quarterback situation that was going on there. And then he realized in week 3 and week 4 that, this isn't going to work.
Right.
But if he just requested a trade in the offseason, he would have been gone. If he would have requested a trade in the offseason, the San Francisco 49ers wouldn't have paid Brandon Ayuk. And they kind of would have took more of a rental, better option at this point in time in Davante Adams. Teams would have easily been more available to trade for him than they are now.
Oh, 100%. Once the season gets started, it's a lot harder to get your assets together to really make a big move like this. I don't understand what he thought. I guess I'm going to assume that it was that he thought Gardner was going to be better than he is. But I don't see how he thought they were going to compete, or if he thought he was going to have a great statistical year. I don't know what the problem is. I can understand why he doesn't want to be there, but yeah, like you said, if you didn't nothing changed from.
If this was middle of the season, then I'm like, okay, right? He gave it one more shot, gave Antonio one more go at it, and everything else like that. But it's just I don't understand. And then looking at the box score of the best game they did have this year as a team when they beat the Ravens, Davante Adams had 9 receptions for 110 yards and a tutty.
Yeah, that's.
And Brock Bowers also hooped in this game. So it's obviously not the best situation, but he had a game where he did play well. And you got to think he didn't play in the game where they lost against Carolina. He's not playing this upcoming week. So something had to have happened behind the scenes to make it seem like this isn't going to work.
Right.
But this is also something that we knew was going to work last year, but he stayed and didn't request a trade in the offseason. So I just think doing it now is just making the situation a lot harder on himself to get to where he wants to go, because if there's a lot more teams that would have been available to getting him in the offseason.
Yeah, there would have been. I've heard it's not a phantom injury situation. He is hurt. And then on the other side of it, you have the whole Antonio Pierce thing, where he got caught liking an Instagram post about Davante playing his last game there, which I hate that that's a thing now. That we are just we can just judge what people are thinking based on what they like on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And Antonio Pierce is liking that. I don't know. He's a second-year coach, and this is definitely on him too, because you can tell by the interviews and that whole situation that he's just not. Maybe I don't know if he's not the guy for the job, but you can tell it's a rocky situation between him and Davante. Even no matter what he says, oh, we talk every day. Obviously there's something wrong.
This goes into kind of what I believe is, just because you're a good coordinator, you're an elite level coordinator, does not mean that you're going to be a great head coach.
Oh, not at all.
Head coach to coordinator, that bridge and that gap is very significant.
We're seeing it with Cliff Kingsbury too. He was a terrible head coach, and now
great OC,
one of the best OCs in the league.
And then I feel the same way about Robert Saleh. I think he's a phenomenal defensive coordinator, but head coach is a whole different aspect and a whole different game compared to just being a coordinator. I think I'm full in on Ben Johnson from the Lions. People are saying he's an offensive guru. I'm not shocked if he goes somewhere and it's just a rocky situation, because he was an OC, which I think he is the entire reason why the Lions are the way they are, outside of Dan Campbell. You need a coach that's going to build a culture, but your OC and DCs are completely different than your head coach. And I feel like that's where Antonio Pierce is at right now. But that's just my opinion on that.
I think so too, but I gotta give him some more time for sure. But I mean, it's
Oh
not
yeah.
looking good because now I'm hearing like things that like maybe Max Crosby would also be on the block, and obviously you're never going to look good as a head coach after your team is rebuilding. Like, you're just
I
not going
mean,
to look good.
I'm not opposed to them hitting the reset. That's the
Mm-mm.
thing. Like if you're going into a new era with Antonio Pierce, like this team is also in a division with the Chiefs and the Chargers who have gotten better. Like I don't they were never one to compete, and they have the main problem with main franchises. They don't have a quarterback. Until you get the quarterback, it's hard to compete at a real high level because a good quarterback can clean up all the little stuff. Look at the Commanders. Terrible fucking defense going into the year. You really only have one true wide receiver.
Same
Traded your other
weapons
one to
as
the
last year.
Eagles. Yes. And like you're Jane Daniels is cleaning up everything and they're leading the division. So until the Raiders get a quarterback, this was always going to be the situation. And I
Yep.
don't understand why like Gardner Minshew's the backup. He's a career backup. Why did you think he can come to the league right now and start?
Like I get Davante wanted to be with Derek Carr because that's his dude, but
Mm-hmm.
like you said, like, why are we not asking for that trade this offseason? Then
Exactly.
like, that doesn't. You knew what it was. You knew who your quarterback was. You knew what the situation was coming into the season. I don't know. Feels weird.
I just think if anything, if you're the Raiders and you were gonna go get somebody, go get Joe Flacco, somebody who's actually been a starter, Super Bowl champion quarterback. Like now, I'm not gonna be surprised if Anthony Richardson is out for 2 weeks and the Colts all of a sudden are over 500.
Right.
Like I just don't. And I've had this conversation on our actual episodes. Like I just hate when they go find a backup flyer quarterback with no offensive real infrastructure and then think it's gonna just pan and work out.
Yeah.
That's not how it works out. Look at Tyler Huntley in the Dolphins,
It
what we
just ain't
talked about.
working.
It's not going to work out because why was Tyler Huntley so good with the Ravens? He was with them for years and understood the offense.
Yep.
And he was kind of a similar play style to Lamar Jackson in
Didn't
a
have to
way.
change the play calls for him.
Now you go to Miami, no wonder it's going to look bad. Obviously, this is his first week. It could get better, but no wonder it's going to look bad. It's a completely different offensive scheme and new team.
Yeah.
So I don't know why teams think it's going to work. Even Gardner, when his time at the with even the Colts, he was the backup. Eagles, he was the backup.
Yep.
Knew the offense, knew the infrastructure. Obviously, all the teams are different in terms of like play calling and weapons, but I just think it's just alarming to see that the Raiders thought anything was going to really work out with this team this year.
Yeah, it sucks. I don't know why they thought that at all. But I mean, now we're here, and I don't know if he's probably going to get traded. I would think.
I don't think he plays another game for the Raiders.
Probably not.
Because I do think there are actual teams that are in the market for him. Because I have 5 best fits. I have a couple teams that I've seen rumored but don't make sense to me. I can kind of start out with the teams that don't make sense. Commanders, they have the cap space. I think it's too premature. I know Jane Daniels looking good right now. That's kind of the same situation where not a super established quarterback. Team obviously isn't ready to compete. Davante Adams is older. If I'm the Commanders, why would I spend cap space on Davante Adams, an older receiver? If I'm going to go trade for anybody, I would try to see what T. Higgins' value is looking like.
Yep.
If anything like that.
That's somebody I can pay long term.
Yeah, you can pay him long term.
Like, I can pay Davante, but I'd rather not. He's 31, turning 32.
And they're still so far from really competing for real, like title contending competing. So I just think that doesn't make sense. I don't think Dallas, I just don't think that, it's not that it doesn't make sense. Dallas is just not making that move.
No, Dallas doesn't make that
Dallas is just not making that move. If Dallas made a move like that, I would actually be shocked.
It would make sense, I think, but that's just not.
Of course makes sense. Of course it makes sense. You add Davante and CD in that offense, it gets legit. But Dallas isn't going to do. Didn't even want to pay Derrick Henry this offseason. So why do you think they're going to pay Davante Adams, who's aging?
$30 million to fucking no. To Davante Adams, not going to happen.
Because if you bring in Davante Adams, I know it's like the non-guarantees are 2 years after this, so I don't really know how that all entails. Like if they could get off the contract or whatever, that's just interesting to go into as well. But if you bring in Davante Adams and want to keep him long term, then you might as well kiss Micah Parsons goodbye.
Yeah.
Because there's no way you would have the cap space to do that.
Because now you're paying 60 to Dak, 30 to CD, 25 to Davante. You just can't do that.
And I think they could just go get somebody cheaper.
Yeah.
for better,
Yeah.
but they don't do that. So
No.
I didn't even put Dallas in my top 5 for anything because this is just not they're just not going to do it. But I mean, my top 5 is really kind of basic. I have a one. My team at 1 is a very sleeper team. But 5, Steelers, love the fit, but it's also too similar of a situation to not an established quarterback. He's aging. He's not. I don't think he, even though Fields has played well, I don't think he's going to really trust that offense. I feel like
Yeah.
it's too similar to the Raiders and what they have going on. Obviously, a lot better for sure, but I just think he's going to go somewhere where the quarterback is very, very established. Another team that I don't think makes sense. It makes sense because Derek Carr's there with the Saints, but just cap room wise, like
No,
during
they
the
just
season, there's no shot that they're going to make any kind of push for that. Just because I think it's just such a
they're
far
already in
get.
the bin money wise.
They have $4 million in cap space at this current time, so I just don't see them making it work. Off season wise, they probably could have, but Saints should just keep going with what they have right now, in my opinion.
He's playing good.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep going with what you got.
At 4, I had San Francisco. They have $55 million in cap space somehow because they're not paying Brock Purdy any money. But it makes sense because maybe you go into this season 1 year, one last go, because if you're planning on paying Purdy next year, this core is going to be falling apart because you're not going to be able to pay all those guys. So if you want to go in one more year all in and go get Davante Adams, because Deebo Samuel's probably going to miss another couple weeks throughout the year. Juwan Jennings has been good, but we're talking about Davante Adams here. Ayuk has slow start to start the year. Davante would go in there and be the one for sure. And then you don't have Christian McCaffrey, so it would give you another element to that offense. But then again, that's even a far shot because you got to pay Purdy next year. This would be a 1-year rental for you. And I don't know what assets the Raiders would want that the 49ers would be willing to give.
Yeah, I don't.
For
this
a
is
1
the
year.
One I don't see really any chance of this happening, honestly.
This is only because the fit makes sense for sure. But the assets that the 49ers would be willing to give for a 1 year, I don't know if it would be worth the Raiders' time. At 3, I had Green Bay.
Man.
$15 million in cap space. They're a team where Jaden Reed's obviously the one there right now. But then it's just a kind of a mixed bag of receivers, whoever steps up that night. And Octavia Wicks, Christian Watson, he stays hurt. They're in a position to where they could really complete that offense with getting Davante Adams and him and Reed playing off of each other really well. You have an established quarterback in Jordan Love who's there long term, and he knows the situation is good in Green Bay. This is one that I don't see really get talked about enough.
Right.
Because he knows it's a good situation. Played there before. He knows the coach. He knows he's going to get utilized in the right ways. I think it would be a great fit. It's just if Green Bay would be willing to go out and make that move happen.
I don't think they would just because it doesn't really fit their time. I think they have a very specific timeline that they're on. All these receivers are younger than 25 years old, and I think they're trying to stick to that, honestly.
Yeah. It would be interesting.
I don't hate it, though. It would be, it
would be interesting.
Oh, my God, that'd be amazing. But
they're also, because then it's I feel like he get traded there, and then all of a sudden Jordan Love keeps getting in and out of the lineup, and then it's a year wasted, and then he has non-guarantees. I think it could just become a messy situation.
Right.
But my top 2 teams are teams that I'm most confident in. One of them hasn't been talked about at all in rumors, but they have a ton of cap space, and I think it does make sense. Number 2, I have the Jets. A lot of people are going to have number 1 be the Jets. Obviously, the Rodgers connection, we all know that. I don't really need to harp on it too much. They need a weapon like Davante Adams to really solidify this offense because I feel like the defense is going to come around. The defense is going to be more consistent through the back half of the year. But if that offense doesn't get anything together, that defense is going to get torn to shreds throughout the playoffs and throughout the rest of the year because that offense isn't good enough. And I just feel like the Jets are a next year team from what I'm looking at it. I just feel like next year they're going to be better. I don't think Nathaniel Hackett is the guy to call the plays. I think Breece Hall is getting used terribly. I just think they're still a receiver away, and that could be Davante Adams if they want to give up the draft capital. But they're another team that's in this weird window where they need to win right now. So
right, yeah. Quarterback's old. Roster's going to get pricey at some point.
I just think it's very interesting to see because I don't know if Garrett Wilson is a 1-1 right now.
Right.
because like this team hasn't been in those high pressure
He's not
situations really.
Davante Adams.
No,
Like he's just not.
and I think Davante Adams could make this Jets team significantly better offensively, and I think it could be the move that takes them over the top. But like, it's still like that window's so weird and so short to where I don't know if the Jets are going to be willing to do that. Maybe they are because they're so desperate.
Right.
And that's why I have them at 2, like over San Fran and Green Bay, because those teams aren't really desperate to go get Davante Adams. I think the Jets are desperate to go get Davante Adams. And then at 1 is a team that I think this would make them easily, by far, probably the best offense we've seen in possibly like ever almost. It might be a little bit of a hot take if they were to get him. Team that has $40 million in cap space, about $41 million in cap space, needs a wide receiver 2 desperately. I have the Lions.
Wow.
I have the Lions at 1. I think when you look at this Lions team, the receiver depth has always been a problem. I think obviously they have question marks on the defense, but if you add Davante Adams to what already they have going offensively, you're talking about you have a weapons room of Laporta, Amon-Ra, J-Mo, Davante Adams, Gibbs, and Montgomery. With Jared
that's
Goff.
like the best weapons
yes.
we've seen in a long time.
And it's not far-fetched to say that they have the cap space to go make it work. They have the capital to go make it work and make it happen. Because I don't know how confident you would be in J-Mo really being your 2.
Being my 2, like I think I'd be okay with it with all the other weapons that they have, and I think they're okay with it. But I can see how you'd be like, this guy's only like a speedster. He catches like 2 passes a game. Like, need somebody else. I can completely see that.
Because my whole thought process on this is their wide receiver room is so thin, and Tim Patrick had a day like on Monday night, but like it's so thin to where like if J-Mo did get hurt, knock on wood, if Amon-Ra did get hurt, then they're really scarce. Then they're really scarce at receiver. So I'm like, if you're the Lions to where like your window is now, the NFC is as weak as can be at the moment. The Niners are hurt. The Cowboys aren't anything real to be scared about. The Eagles are whatever. Yeah. Like the other 2 teams that are seeming legit are in your own division.
Yeah.
So if there's any move that's going to put you over the top and put you in the best position to go win a Super Bowl, you have the cap space to make it work. Don't act like your window is longer than what it is. This is the football. This isn't a basketball.
Oh, you're 100%. It's
like
not.
if you're in a position to really go out and steal Davante Adams away from other teams that are buying for him, you have the cap space and the capital to go do it. And I think it would make them one of the best offensive units we've ever seen.
It would make them insane on offense, especially coming off the game where we saw Jared Goff go 18 for 18. It would be very scary. I haven't even heard that one yet. I think it would be very interesting. Something I think they won't do.
No, I just think it's situational.
They have J-Mo.
Situation.
Someone a team that I've been thinking of that you didn't mention was Buffalo. I've been thinking about Buffalo. I think that he'd be really interesting with Josh Allen. We obviously know there's no number 1 right there right now. I mean, it's a mix of Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid, Shakir.
So looking at them, they have a ton of dead cap, $64 million in dead cap. They only have $3 million in cap space to use, and it's like you got rid of an aging wide receiver in Diggs to bring in an aging one in Adams.
I think they could. I think they weren't expecting to be as good as they are. So I think it's something that if they were really interested, because I think Diggs was a very specific situation, and I think we know who. Like I don't think Davante is like that for targets like Diggs was. If you know what I'm saying.
No, I get what you're saying.
Like I think right now we're seeing a situation where it's not like, hey, Gardner's not throwing me the fucking ball. I think it's more like, this isn't like, this team doesn't fit my timeline. I want to be with a more established team quarterback. And I think that would be interesting. But like, yeah, with $64 million in dead cap, obviously you can always move cap around, and there's ways that these teams that don't have cap could probably find a way to get some cap to do this move. But there's only so many financial hula hoops you can jump through, or should be willing to jump through.
So this year his base contract is about $17 million, and then next year is the 35 and the 35.
Ooh.
For the next 2. So it's definitely doable. I'm not like really savvy when it comes to NFL
Yeah,
contracts because
no,
it can get very
confusing.
interesting. Like the Niners having $55 million in cap space somehow. Like,
What?
um, another team I've seen is float around as Baltimore. They're kind of in the same situation as the Bills. They don't really have a lot of cap space. KC, I just don't think this is like them making that kind of move. I just don't see it. But for Baltimore and Buffalo, two options. I guess you could throw KC in there as well. Two options I see. I think those three teams are better suited to give up less to go get somebody like D Hop compared to a Davante Adams, which is going to be more expensive trade wise in general. And KC dealing with the Raiders in their own division, I just don't think that happens. But I think D Hop for all three of these teams is kind of a more easier path to get somebody like a D Hop because of just they're two completely different players.
That's what. Yeah, I guess what I'm thinking though is like that's what they are, two completely different players. Like
Yeah,
D Hop is this nowadays. Like D Hop, hey, back in the day, D Hop was fire.
he
But
has
like
Will Levis throwing the ball. I can't take too much stock.
I think he's washed. I think he's just too old nowadays. I
But
think
if you go put him in
Devontae's
a situation where he has Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen, I think he could give you a little bit of something, especially for all three of these teams that kind of just need somebody a little bit more reliable.
yeah, he can give you a little something. But like
Yeah.
I did see a headline that he's losing snaps to Treylon Burks, who we're all saying was a fucking bust.
Mm.
But I again love D Hop, and I would be interested to see him with a better quarterback for sure because he's been with like Kyler, who's obviously not the best throwing quarterback, and now Will Levis. I can't
Right.
believe he went to the Titans, bro.
I mean,
was
I guess you could throw
surprised.
Amari Cooper into kind of like that middle tier between D Hop and Devontae in terms of what a
Yeah,
guy that these teams could go get that's kind of going to be probably cheaper than Davante Adams because Davante Adams I feel like is still a top 5 receiver in the league. Amari Cooper is another name that's been thrown around in rumors as well. But there's a lot of teams out here to where if I think it was the offseason, I think it would have got a lot more interesting. Like I said, I don't think Brandon Ayuk would have gotten paid if the Niners knew they can go get somebody of the caliber of Davante Adams. Um, who else could have been interesting? Like Dallas might have been a little bit more enticing in the offseason if they were able to
right.
make moves, but they paid Dak and CD so late to where I don't even think it would have even mattered.
Yeah, we
Um,
were in Cowboys were in a really like just weird scenario where they're paying different guys like so much money, but also holding out. So like bringing other guys in like that would have really looked weird.
I think the Saints would have made it happen if it was the offseason, honestly, with all the different kind of things they could have done this offseason. I know they brought in Chase Young in free agency. I think they could have definitely went out and got Devontae.
The Saints are the one team because the Saints have been borrowing from their future like the past like 3-4 years every
Yeah.
year. So at some point they are gonna have to like rebuild because
Mm-hmm.
they're so in cap hell in the next few years. But I mean, like you said, I mean to get a Super Bowl, you'll do whatever. Like we saw what the Rams did.
Right.
Like you'll stake your future out for us. So yeah, if they could have made it happen in the offseason, I don't see why they wouldn't have. But maybe they wouldn't. I don't know if they saw themselves as being like what they were to start the season, at least on offense,
Oh no, probably
dropping
not.
48 a game. Like, did you really think you were going to be having a chance to win the division, get a playoff spot? I don't know how they were feeling.
No, probably
I mean,
not.
I had Dennis Allen on the chopping block.
Right.
So
But I mean, that's kind of really all I have for this discussion at this point. Obviously, it's going
yeah,
to grow in the upcoming weeks because I don't
yep,
think this is something that's going to happen in the next couple of days. It does seem like it's going to happen soon because he isn't playing. And I
yeah.
know it doesn't seem like a phantom injury or anything else, like you said, but he's also
That's
not
just at least
playing.
what I've been hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard it on like some of the podcasts that I've been listening to that he is actually hurt. But
And then Max
how
Crosby
does that
also didn't
impact him?
play last week, so there's something interesting going on in Vegas for sure right now. There's definitely because the package, whatever they get back from Crosby, and if they move Crosby and Davante Adams, is perfectly suited for them to start a rebuild because they don't have a lot of bad things already on that team.
Right. Yeah, I
So
mean they have some okay infrastructure and
yeah,
not too many terrible contracts either. So I think it'd be all right.
like I said, they're getting in a spot where if they get a quarterback, they're going to be okay.
Yeah, I mean you have Brock Bowers should be a dog in a few years. And
Yes.
Yeah, they're gonna be all right. It's just you gotta rebuild, man. You just don't you these teams. You think you can just take these mediocre rosters and take them somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And
Everybody thinks they can be the Browns of last year with Joe Flacco. The Browns had the best defense in all of football. The best defense in all of football. They had David Njoku who
an
broke out last
overperforming
year.
O line.
Yes, like I think teams just got to be a little bit more realistic with what
100%.
they actually have.
Especially in the AFC, man. Like, how did you think you were gonna? I don't know.
And even with how good Flacco was playing, which was actually mid, if you looked at the stats, he was playing very mid. It's just they were being really
He's
aggressive.
Yeah, they're aggressive. He's game managing. Defense was playing out of their minds. I mean,
They
getting
got
defensive
absolutely
touchdowns.
wiped by the Texans in the wild card.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. That's all I really have for this Davante Adams discussion.
Yep.
You want to wrap it up there?
Yeah.
Thank you guys for tuning into the Barrel Talk podcast. Hope to see you tune in to future episodes.